We'll get started. Okay, folks, I think we're going to get started here. So here we go. Welcome to this committee meeting on state legislative affairs. Today is April 26th. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Chairman Gonzalez.
Present.
Vice Chairman Reyes.
Present.
Councilwoman Peterson. Present. Councilwoman Vargas is absent. Councilwoman Graves is absent. We have 3 present and 2 absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'd like to also acknowledge Councilwoman Anthony. Thank you for being here.
So noted.
So we're going to get started. Madam Clerk, if you can read item number 1 to the record.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5289 and Senate Bill 2023 S-0443, an act relating to alcoholic beverages retail licenses.
Great, so procedurally, we're going to get started here. We'd like to lay down the format for this. This is not a public hearing, just so everyone is aware. However, we will have counsel from both sides share their perspectives. We're going to have the proponent of the liquor license go first and the applicant of the project go first. Then we're going to have the opponent of the project and their counsel share their perspectives on this. So, Madam Clerk, if we can entertain a motion to have the gentleman who is the proponent of the project as well as his counsel come up and also be sworn in.
Chair, would you like this over here?
Yes, sir, please.
Hello, can you gentlemen raise your right hand for me? Do you swear under the perjury of the law that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name for the record, please.
Jeffrey Padua. I represent George Potsidis and Estiatorio Fili.
George Potsidis, the owner of Estiatorio Fili.
Just spell your last name for me, please.
Potsidis.
Thank you.
And apologies about doing this, but would you mind just shifting kind of where everyone's sitting here so the council members can see everyone? Or I don't know if we want to have the city solicitor maybe move over to this side and you can be on that side, or just,
Wants to be at the end?
yeah, that's okay, just so everyone can see you.
So that matters. So there.
And I'd also like to acknowledge Solicitor Pearson for being here. Thank you for being here, Solicitor. So we'd like to hear a little bit more about the project. Please tell us about the proposed restaurant and why you believe a liquor license should be granted for this establishment.
So, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you. My name is Jeff Padua. For those who I don't know, I did serve as city solicitor when Angel Tavares was the mayor, and I know how hard you guys work and how dedicated you are, so thank you for your service. Mr. Potsidis wants to open a family-style Greek restaurant in Ward 2 in a mixed-use building in which he lives. It's in a C2 zone. The proposal is for a family-style Greek restaurant with a liquor license. No matter what you hear today, the one thing you should go away with is this absolutely is not a bar. So before you is a resolution that, if passed by the city council, asks the General Assembly to pass legislation that would allow Mr. Potsidis to go to the Board of Licensing and to apply for a license. There is something called a legal remonstrance. It's in the statutes. And it says that if there is a school within 200 feet of the applicant, or if more than 50% of the people, the property owners within 200 feet, if either of those object, that the Board of Licenses is prohibited from hearing the application. The statute has over 60 exceptions allowing applicants, like Mr. Patsidis, to go before the Board of Licenses. Every year, 1 or 2 exceptions get passed by the General Assembly, which allow applicants to go before the Board of Licenses. So that's what this resolution is about. We are asking to be treated like all of the other restaurants in Wayland Square. So before you are a number of exhibits, and I ask you to look at Exhibit 1, which is a map, Google map, of the Wayland Square area. And you can see down the middle in blue is Wayland Avenue, and on the right-hand side, between Medway Street and Waterman Street, you can see where it says Cross School Number 1. So sometime in 2018, the Cross School opened and moved literally to the heart of Wayland Square. Next door, just north, you can see is Costa Beach, which is a kind restaurant with a liquor license. Literally next door, just to the south, McBride's Pub, which is an Irish pub. Across the street, directly across the street, there are 2 restaurants with liquor licenses, Diego's East Side and the Salted Slate. At the end of the block, there is a Japanese restaurant with a liquor license, Haruki. There are, on South Angel Street, there's Red Stripe and Limbs. And at the corner of Waterman and Wayland, there's Bar A Rooftop, again, another restaurant with a liquor license. If you look to the left of Wayland Avenue at Waterman Street, 2 properties in, 225 Waterman Street, that's where the applicant restaurant would be. And just below that, it says Cross School Number 2. So early in 2022, at about the time that the application for the liquor license was submitted, the Cross School leased that space, and that space is within 200 feet of the restaurant. So, Wayland Square is obviously known as a restaurant and retail district, and a family-style Greek restaurant with a liquor license would completely fit in. We're asking to be treated like all the other restaurants. In fact, it would be pretty crazy that a school could move into Wayland Square and prevent any other restaurant from opening with a liquor license. So we're asking to be treated like everybody else, and that means we want to be able to apply for a liquor license. So now let me talk about, actually I'll have Mr. Patsidis talk about the concept for the restaurant and the business plan and the menu. As I said, Mr. Patsidis lives in the building. He is going to manage the restaurant. George, let me start off and let me just have you explain the concept for this restaurant.
Good afternoon, everyone. The concept is simple. I was born in Greece. I came here as a youngster. Grew up in Boston, then moved to Providence. Grew up with Greek food. Lucky enough to grow up with Greek food throughout my life. I go back to Greece every year. I have family there. And I wanted to bring finer Greek cuisine. You know, most people know. They know pizza, and they know gyros, whatever. But Greek food is a lot more than that. So that was my passion. That's the reason why I'm doing this. I own the building. Besides living in the building, I built the building. I own it. I plan to be there. So, you know, I'm heavily invested in that neighborhood.
So George, why don't we go through the business plan? Business plan is Exhibit 2 for you. So let's briefly go through the business plan and just tell the committee about the restaurant.
I'm tailoring my market trial or clientele could be the over 30. It can use the term sophisticated, but people that like finer, can appreciate finer cuisine. That is my clientele, which I think that location is well suited for it. It's a small establishment. We probably have a total of 45 seats. We're planning on being open 5 days a week, 5 nights a week, possibly brunch on Saturday and Sunday, but we would be closed Monday and Tuesday. The hours of operation, we're looking at opening on weeknights, Wednesday through Saturday from 5 p.m. To 11, and on weekends open till midnight for the 2 nights.
And would you explain your rationale or your thoughts behind the hours?
Well, I don't want to do breakfast, I don't want to do lunch, so dinner is the crowd that I'm going with. I want to do 2 seatings. I don't want people to feel rushed. If someone wants to come in at 8 o'clock for dinner, and a lot of people want to eat a little bit later. The other restaurants kind of, and I'm a patron of the other restaurants, I'm kind of like rushed through dinner. I didn't want that. I want people to come in at 8:30 if they want to have dinner, stay there till 10, don't feel like they have to leave by 9:30. So that's the reason for the hours.
And have you obtained some licenses and permits already to operate the restaurant?
We received all the permits that are needed. The restaurant will be open today. And it will be open soon.
So
So we have all the necessary approvals.
So if you look, we provided as Exhibit 3, there's photographs of the licenses from the city and from the state in order to operate as a restaurant. How about the managing and staffing of the restaurant? Let's talk about that.
I'm the sole owner of the place. I plan to be there and manage it. I plan to have, it's a small staff, it's 5 or 6 people, 2 or 3 in the kitchen, 2 or 3 from the house. Which covers it.
Okay. How about your marketing plan? Let's just talk about that for a minute.
Marketing plan is, again, it's tailored towards the over 30 clientele. And we've had very positive feedback from people in the neighborhood that they can't wait for this thing to open. So I think that seems to be a good fit.
All right, now let's go to the third page of the business plan. There's a sample menu. The menu will this is the menu, but you'll have some changes from time to time, I take it.
Yeah, the chef can have some input on this, but these are the foods that I can work with that I appreciate. This is what I put together.
All right, so let's just go down the list. So first thing is salads. Just describe those salads there and how they're prepared.
Well, everyone knows the Greek salad. You know, everything, there's nothing cooked in it. It's vegetables, tomatoes, cheese, olive oil. Pretty much covers the typical Greek salad, which I think is a staple in every restaurant.
All right, just a brief diversion here. Let me ask you, generally, are you familiar with the different types of hoods and the hood ventilation in commercial kitchens, generally?
General, I am.
Okay, so there's a type 1 hood and a type 2 hood, right?
Yes.
What is a type 1 hood?
Type 1 hood is used for, it's required when you have greasy food, you have fire laters, grills, or gas-fired equipment for fumes.
Okay. And what's a type 2 hood?
Type 2 hood is more for steam, boiling, and baking.
All right. What kind of hood do you have at the restaurant?
Type 2 hood.
So, with respect to the salads, is any hood needed for that?
No.
Now, let's go down to soups. Tell us about the soups and how they're made.
It would be on we have two pieces of cooking equipment. One is an electric convection oven, and the other one is an electric induction cooktop. All the soups would be on the cooktop, and it would create steam and heat, perhaps.
And so in cooking those soups, is that like a greasy, oily kind of a thing?
No.
So a type 2 hood would be appropriate for those soups, right?
Yes.
Let's go to the next item, crudo, cured fish. What is that?
Simplest way to explain it is it's like Mediterranean sushi. It's raw fish, dressed in seasoning and olive oil, but none of it is cooked. It's cured.
So would a hood be required for preparing raw fish?
No, it would not.
Let's go to the next item, cheese, spreads, and dips. Tell us about what those are and how they're prepared.
Those are similar to the salads. They're not cooked. Everyone knows, I think most people know what tzatziki is, which is the cucumber and yogurt sauce. That means salata is an eggplant salad, hummus, chickpea, and then kilo cafeteria is feta cheese. It's a little spicier. None of those are cooked.
So would a hood be required for any of those items?
No, they would not.
Okay. Let's go to the next, casseroles, cooked in oven. Tell us about those items and how they're prepared.
Those are all baked. They're all casseroles, as you mentioned. They're all baked in the oven. And being in an oven, it's all contained.
Not greasy or oily or that kind of thing?
No,
So what type of hood would be required for casseroles and cooking in the oven?
it's not required, but a type 2 would be sufficient.
Okay.
So, Mr. Padua, I think we get where you're going with this. I must interject, I think it's appropriate for the committee members to ask these questions. So I think for future purposes here, I think it's important for the other side also to allow committee members to ask their respective questions. But I appreciate this, and I think it's very informative to be able to share this with the rest of the committee here.
Okay.
I think you can continue with going through the menu, because I think that's informative, but I just wanted to kind of lay that out as an important ground rule kind of moving forward.
Okay. The pasta, that require a hood?
No, that's steam generating.
How about the brunch items?
Those are all baked or served uncooked.
Okay. And how about the desserts? How are those prepared?
They're baked.
Okay. Members of the committee, attached as exhibit 4 are some photographs. George, can you just tell us, what's that first photograph showing?
That's the exterior of the restaurant space, the entrance.
Okay, and how about the next photograph? What's that?
That's the interior. You can see the seating is to the right. And there's also seating at the bar to the left.
And the next photograph is of the kitchen. And
That's the kitchen. That's the convection oven to the far left, the cooktop in the middle, and the hood above it.
and how about the last photograph? What is that? Same.
It's the same from a different angle. The oven is on the left.
And that shows the equipment in the hood, in the kitchen. All right, so
Jeff, I think we could maybe pause there, because we have to make a motion to entertain these items into the record. So is there a council member who would make a motion to entertain exhibits 1 through 4 into the record? So motion made by Councilor Boyes, seconded by Councilor Peterson. All in favor? All All opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, thank you. Now, let's talk about your plans for storing and removing the trash. What are your plans for storing and removing the trash created by the restaurant?
In the building, there is an indoor trash room that I have built into it, accessible with an overhead door on the eastern side of the building. The plan is twice a week to have trash pickup by a private hauler. They show up, they roll out the containers, empty them, roll them back, they take off. We use that right now because there's 22 residential apartments above, and it's the same system that's being used right now.
And do they pick up the trash at a scheduled off-peak hour kind of time?
They do.
Okay, now let's talk about how you would handle the delivery of alcohol. How often would that happen?
I expect that to happen once a week. Again, we're a small establishment. Once a week should be sufficient.
And in your experience, are those trucks like the size of I think they're called city vans, they're like FedEx or UPS kind of style trucks?
They are.
And you imagine that they would park there again at a scheduled off-peak time, roll the alcohol in, and that's how they would deliver it?
They would, similar to every other establishment there.
I think that's all the explaining and questions I have for Mr. Patsidas. If you all have any questions you'd like to ask now, otherwise I'll just continue a few more comments.
Yeah, we'll turn it over to council members. I'm sure there are questions about this particular establishment. I'll begin. Can you describe who is supporting the liquor license in the community? So members of the community who are actually supporting this liquor license.
Yeah, sure. So I still have some comments. That was just the end of Mr. Patsidas talking. But I have given you as Exhibit 5 over 100, somewhere between 100 and 125 emails, letters, postings on the Wayland Square Neighborhood Association Facebook page, petitions from a variety of people. I also know that there's probably another, 15 to 25 or more emails that were sent to yourself and to Councilman Anthony that I was told that they sent them, and assuming you have them. So again, about 100, 120 so individuals here. People like Joe Palino, Larry Goldstein, and many other prominent people from the two wards. Let me just continue by just giving the committee a history of how we got to where we are today with this matter. So an application was filed by Mr. Patsidas for a liquor license in spring, summer of 2022. Immediately, a campaign of misinformation was started that this would be a loud bar with drunk and rowdy people outside late at night that would disturb neighbors. That's not true. There was a legal remonstrance, so as I said, and as a result, the Board of Licenses didn't hear the matter. After that, shortly after, sometime after that, we met with Councilman Gonzalez, and we showed him the restaurant, explained the business plan, like we talked in the menu. Obviously, Councilman Gonzalez is the Ward 2 councilman, or just
Ward 1.
I'm sorry,
That's Ward 2.
I know better, sorry, misstatement. Misstatement, correct the record, please. And so that's why we met with him. He had indicated he was supportive As a result, legislation was introduced in both the House and in the Senate. And as is the unwritten rule, the House and the Senate, because this is a local matter, are waiting for the City Council to pass a resolution in support. No resolution, legislation doesn't pass. We get a resolution, they'll consider it. Who knows if they'll pass it? Typically they do, but you never know. Which is why we're before you with this resolution. So that's the status. Just a couple more things and I'll conclude here. So just want to address some of the objections that have been raised that we've heard. So as I said, this is not and will not be a bar. It won't be a loud, rowdy bar with drunk people coming out late at night. Apparently, the objectors raised the second issue, which in writing, which I've seen, which says that they have proof that we will be a loud, late-night rowdy bar because we are prohibited from getting a range which would prohibit us from being a restaurant. As you all know, we have a range and we have the licensing from the city and the state. So they then pivoted and said that we have the wrong kind of hood and saying that we needed a type 1 hood for greasy food. As we've explained, that's not our concept, that's not our menu. They have submitted, I know, an analysis from a building code consultant that says that a good portion of the menu items being offered could not be prepared with the current type 2 steam hood provided. As we've gone over the menu, we know that that's also not true.
And for the record, where were these comments made, or where are these communications?
Well, so we have a letter, among other things, letter written to the General Assembly dated March 15th, 2023. We have a letter to the City Council dated April 10th, 2023. And we have form letters that were provided to yourself and Councilwoman Anthony dated March 9, 2023. So there was one particular effort by opponents to have people in the Wayland Manor sign letters, and they sent one of the residents was very concerned about this, and she sent an email to the president of the Wayland Square Neighborhood Association. And I just want to read into the record an excerpt from this email because I think it's telling. Before we do. This email says, "Hi Nina, I'm a tenant of Wayland Manor. This afternoon, every tenant in Wayland Manor had 2 form letters slid under our doors arguing strongly against the liquor license for 225 Waterman. They had a space to add our name and signature at the end of the letter so that we could send them in. There was no other explanation other than the form letters and a sealed envelope with our apartment number on them. I found this gesture to be an incredible conflict of interest and terribly coercive and inappropriate. If we do not add our names to the list of supporters, do our rents get hiked? Just thought you should know that these are the kinds of tactics being used to strong-arm support for their monopoly." I just wanted to read that into the record. Finally, I just want to address the unfortunate and misleading 2 articles in the Go Local
Excuse me,
Proud.
folks, we're in the middle of a hearing, so please be respectful.
In the Go Local Proud website, there were 2 misleading and unfortunate articles.
Jeff, respectfully, I think we're going to keep it to this matter. It's about the business that's on this docket. do think that it's important to keep it to the merits of what you're discussing. And, campaign-related issues, that's a separate issue. So I'll allow you
I
to
will
continue, but I
take your
just want to
guidance
share
and
that
move on.
for the
I'll
record.
take your guidance and move on. Let me just summarize. What Mr. Patsias is proposing is a family-style Greek restaurant with a liquor license. He wants to be treated like all the other restaurants in Wayland Square. We've shown you the business plan, the menu, photographs of the kitchen, the licenses and permits to operate as a restaurant. The kitchen is equipped with the proper hood for a healthy menu that's being offered. There's proper trash and arrangements have been made for adequate trash pickup. Delivery of liquor will be at off-peak hours. There has been misinformation spread about what we're proposing. We ask you to not believe that misinformation, and we're respectfully requesting the committee and the council to support this resolution.
Great, thank you. So we're going to open it up to questions. I have several questions that I can offer up, and then council members will appreciate your questions as well. So how is this establishment similar or different to other establishments in the immediate neighborhood with respect to the hours of operation? I think it's important to clarify that for folks.
Yep.
George, take that? I think we're very similar to, well, we're open later, we're not open for lunch. We're open just for dinner. But I think I believe we're allowed to be open till 1 o'clock in the morning, which we're not going to go there. I think 11 o'clock is what we're asking for weekdays. As I mentioned earlier, for the second seating, for the people not to be rushed to get out of their meals. So I think we're similar. I know McBride's is open later. The other ones are probably open until about 10. But I think they're open till 10 more because by 9 o'clock there's no one there. There's no one. They're done. And if by chance I don't get the later seating that I think I will, I'll be closing earlier as well. I mean, it's a financial decision, but my concept is to not rush the 8 to 8:30 seatings.
So you're affirming today that you will make the commitment to make sure that your establishment is consistent with the other establishments that are in this immediate area?
Pretty much, yes.
So Saturday and Sunday, you're open until 12 a.m., Sunday, 11 p.m. I think one of our concerns as counselors is what impact this will have on quality of life. So these hours are consistent, you're saying, with other establishments such as McBride's that are also bars and restaurants in the neighborhood.
Right, and I think Mario was also at that. Their hours were at that. They might have scaled it back because the economics wasn't there. They weren't not getting the business, but I think originally, I'm just going by memory, they were open a little later than they are now.
Okay. And how do you plan to, so that's great to hear that you're making that affirmation. How do you plan to address or mitigate any challenges with regards to quality of life? So let's say theoretically, there is someone who comes out of the bar and they're particularly rambunctious. How do you plan to respond to that? So you are on site, which is.
I'm on site, I live there, I own the building, all the tenants there. I'm responsible for their comfort and quiet, so I have more of a burden, I think, to make sure that it stays operating smoothly and quietly than anybody else. So again, being there, where the bartenders will be tip trained, so they're not going to be over-serving people. What else can you expect? I think I've got the same approach that other establishments have as well. I mean, someone could walk out of the red stripe and cause havoc, whatever. But the fact that I'll be there and I live there, I think is a big thing on our side.
I think for the two council people in that ward, that's certainly going to be our expectation. So we're going to look forward to seeing that, and should you be able to move forward with this liquor license. So I also just want to clarify for the record, my support was contingent on the neighborhood association support and the neighborhood support. So can you elaborate a little bit about the neighborhood association and where they stand on this particular matter?
Sure, George, well,
Well, the neighborhood association meaning the Wayland Square.
Yes, and I received those communications as well, so I think
Right.
it's,
So Nina Tanwal, who is the president of that association, she's been a big supporter by both getting involved, but also posting things on Facebook. For the other 1,100 followers, whatever, of Wayland Square. I have not seen one negative response to the restaurant. I've gotten a lot of support, which I'm very thankful for. So we've had, through social media, a great response. Now, other neighbors have taken upon themselves, without me asking, to do petitions and go out, because they heard about the untruths and they're going about, and they went out and got signatures and they showed support. So it's been very good.
so members of the committee, Councilor Peterson?
Just a clarification question, and then I have a few others. So the association as a whole is supporting this, not just Nina?
I'm not sure how they're comprised.
Okay.
I know Nina is the president. She has been. I think there's another one.
she wrote a letter of support on their letterhead.
Okay.
We also have the College Hill president of that association also send their support.
The president of
College Hill, I think it's College Hill.
Right,
Yeah.
that was
Neighborhood
not on,
Association.
that was not on association letterhead.
Okay.
I believe, just to correct the record, I think Nina, she's a member. I'm not sure what her status is right now in the neighborhood association, but it was on a William Neighborhood Association letterhead.
Yeah.
Members serves as well. Yes, absolutely, Councilor Peterson.
You said you own the property. Do you own any other properties on the east side or in Providence or Rhode Island?
I do. I have two other properties in Wayland Square.
In
One
Wayland?
on Angel Street.
Okay. Are they restaurant or?
No, they're residential.
And how many tenants do you have in your property where the restaurant will be?
How many what?
Tenants.
22 apartments.
Oh, wow. Two more questions, and then I'll be done.
It's fine.
I am very familiar with Waterman as my children attend, they go to a dentist over there. So I know how busy that street is daily, at all hours of the day. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're thinking in terms of parking? Parking is hard to come by over there. I can certainly understand the concern of neighbors, especially when there's deliveries and things happening. Something that's very close to the area that I live in is Chalkstone Avenue, and it's heavily congested. And I often see the delivery trucks half parked, and it makes it very difficult to navigate through. That being a one-way, I'm just kind of wondering, is there any plan, or is there something that you guys have?
There's on-street parking
Okay.
on Waterman, and Waterman is a two-lane road, which is, even while doing the construction, you can block off one lane temporarily. People get through, if you time it when it's not very busy, where it doesn't affect traffic, we've done that. So there is options. I'm also looking at, because I'm opening at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, a lot of the businesses around there close. So I'm hoping to get some parking from them to use, whether it's through valet or direct park. But nobody else has parking in the other 8 restaurants in Wayland Square. They don't have it. I think that would be better than they are.
Yeah. So my last question is twofold. Do you plan on playing music?
Live music?
Or just
No.
music in general?
No, just
Ambiance
there'll be
kind
some
of?
Greek music on the radio background, or or European music, whatever, but yeah, nothing, no dancing, none of that stuff.
Okay. And so the last question that I have, and it's based on the picture that you submitted. It looks like while it's a restaurant seated for 45, it looks like you have a very big bar area. So I'm wondering, just, based on that, and everything that you guys have kind of planned around, you're going to be heavily reliant on this liquor license for the bar?
I am, but that bar is big, not just for drinking. I prefer myself, if I'm going out for dinner, whether I'm going solo or with a friend, to sit at the bar, as opposed to sitting at a table. So that's, most of us will be dining.
Okay.
And I do prefer sitting at the bar, it just makes it more communal. And that's what we have.
Thank you.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the off-peak hours for deliveries? I think that's something that is relevant to all of this. So do you have a specific plan for that?
I mean, our trash pickup right now is around 9 o'clock on Friday morning, and that seems to be fine. I think the heavy traffic has gone through, and we've been doing it for 2 years, and had no issue. We would do the same thing probably for food and liquor deliveries. The 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock hour, I think is pretty good.
I would also say, living in the area, that that's more on the outbound, Waterman going outbound. I think most people in the morning are coming down South Angel. So I think it's not really in the commuting way. This is more on the outbound side.
Well, if I may, if you could provide us at some point with the specifics on that, I think we would certainly like to have that information just to make sure we're mitigating any concerns with regards to delivery of alcohol. Because we certainly don't want to stall traffic or make the commute, especially for the kids who are going across school and any more burdensome. So
I think there's more deliveries from people ordering things through Amazon and FedEx than you're going to have from liquor delivery once a week for 20 minutes. I think it's less bothersome than some of the other deliveries.
got it. Okay. Well, irrespective,
We'll provide you that
if we
information.
have a plan for that, that'd be great. Council members? Committee?
I have one other question, sorry, because I think that it, and this might not be necessarily for them, it might be because of you both knowing your area so well. Prop 2, when was that opened up?
Didn't you say
I believe-
22?
I believe it was May, June of 2022 was, I think, when the Board of Part of Education recognized it.
And no other restaurants have opened after that until this particular one?
Correct.
Okay.
I will ask the question on Prop 1, which is located literally right next to McBride's. When did Diego's going across the street?
Well, that's a good question, and I don't know how that happened, but that's not my issue.
So it was, Crop Diego's restaurant opened after Crop 1?
That's my understanding, yeah.
I don't have the specifics on that, but I'm just
Any
raising it.
additional questions? Okay. Thank you. So if you can obviously stick around, we're gonna have our neighbors come up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tikes. So
For the record?
we're gonna swear you in first. Sure.
Can you raise your right hand? Do swear in the spirit of law that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name and title for the record, please.
Andrew Tikes, T as in Thomas, E-I-T-Z. I'm an attorney with offices at 2 William Street in Providence. And I'm here representing several people. And I will get to them in a moment. I just would like to have some introductory statements. I think I want to take a moment to tell you what this is not about. Notwithstanding the fact that you've heard close to an hour about what a great restaurant this is gonna be and whatnot, you're not the super liquor licensing board, which would be hearing this stuff. And all the restaurant stuff doesn't matter. You heard about the parking, you heard Mr. Padwa's own expert testimony about traffic inbound versus outbound, which actually I think he's correct. You heard about trash pickup. That's not relevant. This is a C2 zone, a restaurant is allowed without any of those issues, concerns. You saw the very exhibit he gave you, had a batch of permits in it. He's got a permit to open a restaurant. So all those things are kind of red herrings. That's not what it's about. It's really about the liquor license. Because that's what's the key here, and it's about whether what you have as a scheme that's been going on for 86 years, at least, this law goes back at least to 1937. If you were going to override that scheme and do an end run around your own licensing board and the scheme that's there that's supposed to provide the neighborhood input on liquor, and I'm going to talk to you in a minute about why I think that's important. I just want to say, first of all, that I was told this was not a public hearing. I did not realize there would be an opportunity to introduce exhibits, so I don't have a fancy book for you. I do actually have a few things that I made multiple copies of, so if you're introducing them, I will at least tender them to you. But I don't have that because I was understood that that would not be the case here. I do, among my clients, I represent the Cross School, and I do know that they do oppose this. And I'll just note for my part of the record, their approval from the Department of Education was received before the liquor license application for Mr. Vatsides was filed with the city. So they were there before. But I want to go beyond that because it's not just the school. And in fact, that's the key thing here. I have been practicing law in Rhode Island for over 35 years. It makes me feel old, and I do feel old. And for the last 30 years, I think some of you know it, but probably many of you don't, my firm has represented at least 4 towns in Rhode Island, and many of them for all that continuous time. Republican councils going Democratic, Democratic councils going Republican, and we've stayed there because we call it the way we see it. And we currently represent 6 cities and towns in Rhode Island, including the city of Warren. And in all those years of practice, I have several times myself seen this kind of legislation go to the General Assembly. As was noted, there's probably 1 or 2 a year that go to the General Assembly. And I've been involved with several of them over the years. In fact, ironically enough, this very week involved with the town of Bristol, the clerk drafting a resolution in support of a cafe on Hope Street and asking for this kind of relief. But in all those years of doing it, never has it been about the remonstrance and if the majority of the neighbors opposed it. It's always only been if there was a school or a church. And that makes sense. We live in Rhode Island. This place was settled 300 years ago. And what was there first? The schools and the churches. Then later this stuff comes. So that's what I've seen over the years. Our schools and churches, including the one this week. I have never seen one that said, we will also not care if more than 50% of the property ownership object to it. That is new and unique. Now, I don't have numerical proof because I did talk to people at the legislature. I have talked to former Speaker of the House, Bill Murphy, to try to find out what records might be available in the General Assembly so that you could see that. And I have not been able to, I don't think that kind of records exist. But I can tell you that, and he was Speaker for almost a decade, he has no recollection of ever seeing one that wasn't it. And in all my years, I have never had one. The only ones that I've ever had have been not to count the school or the church. But they've always abided by if the property owners of more than 50% of the land within the 200-foot radius object, that has never been overruled. And that's what's doing it here. That's what's tearing your neighborhood apart. Because you're setting neighbor on neighbor. And I'm not gonna get into all of that about, well, who, one person's putting stuff under a door and other people are having Facebook stuff and encouraging people to sign, and how do we count up, who's in favor or whatnot. But the fact of the matter is the people who are most closely affected, the people who own property within 200 feet of it, very strongly object. My clients include 11 different owners of 9 separate properties within the 200-foot radius. And right now, that's 63% of the square footage. And by the way, that's up from 56% at the liquor license board hearing, because more people have come out and willing to stand up because they've been concerned about this end run that they see happen. So the question is why? Why is the liquor important and whatnot? In my years as a solicitor, I'm also a planner. I'm certified as a professional planner by the American Institute of Certified Planners. And as I've done planning, and as I've been a solicitor for towns all these years, and as I've sat through several show cause hearings for liquor license suspensions and fines and revocations and whatnot, I have found that there is a difference. A liquor establishment changes the neighborhood. It's not the same to have a restaurant without liquor and something with liquor. And it's not just the dead drunk. Okay, maybe we've got that stereotype. Somebody's staggering out. We've got them urinating in public. And I deal with that in some of my other towns as well, where you're much larger establishments. And, we have those problems. But even without that, it's the much lesser impact, but the continual impact. First of all, it's much later at night. If there's a restaurant there, I know you were assured this is not a bar, it's a restaurant. Well, I will assure you with the same conviction and sincerity as Mr. Bagua that it is a bar, not a restaurant. And what you have is you have the later crowd, you have people coming out. Maybe they're not drunk, maybe they're just a little tipsy, they've got a buzz on, they're talking louder. They're gonna stay there and talk outside on the street for a little while before they go off to their cars or whatnot. It changes that character of the neighborhood. And that's the concern that we have here. Whalen Square is a neighborhood. Whalen Square is actually a fairly big neighborhood, and there's 2 parts to it. There's a commercial core, where its majority of it is commercial uses and the very large apartment houses right there in with Wayland and Angel and South Angel. That's the commercial core. And then it spreads out to all the other streets around it. That's the Wayland Square neighborhood. And most of those other streets are either all residential or they're a mixture of professional offices and residential. And in fact, we have a separate zone in Providence just for that, which is the zone right across the street from this establishment. It's in C2, but on the other side is this RP, residential professional. And that's the neighborhood, that's the broader neighborhood around it and all those residents. And yes, I think you want the liveliness and you even want some of the towards the nightlife stuff in the core. That's why people are living there. They want to be able to walk from their house and go get a cup of coffee at Starbucks in the morning and maybe go to Red Stripe for lunch and go to the pharmacy and the bookstore. And yeah, maybe they want to go for a drink afterwards in the evening, with or without dinner, maybe. But that's the core. But they want to walk home to their house and not have the continual disturbance of bars right next door to them. And that's what you've got when you've got the liquor license establishments. And it hasn't been there. If you look to see, their precedent is currently, there's no liquor license all the way down Waterfront, from Hope Street to Wayland Street. There's no liquor license there. You're going to be setting a precedent on Waterman Street and the other outlying streets of the neighborhood, where the liquor licenses spreading out. So that's part of the reason why we're concerned about it. Will Mr. Patsides run a good establishment? Probably. Is it going to be a perfect establishment and never have it? Will it not have that characterization? Will it not be the precedent that will lead to more and more of them? And how long is he gonna own it for? How long before he decides to sell it to someone else and time goes on? Once the license is there, it's almost impossible not to renew it, or even if someone wants to transfer it at the same location, it's almost impossible not to grant that. So once the license is there, it's pretty well there for forever. So that's why we're here so concerned with stopping it from ever getting there. I want to talk about, just a little bit on a personal note, it's not just one person who has restaurant tenants who's opposing it. Steve Lewenstein owns a lot of property in Wayland Square and has tenants who are restaurants and they have liquor licenses, okay? There, I've said it. But it's a whole batch of people here who all own property and who don't have restaurant tenants and so forth. My clients include, for the record, Dr. Stephen Lasser and Craig Ellis, 226 Waterman Street, Joan Sackett, 212 Waterman Street, Linda Andrioni, 221 Waterman Street, Baman Jalili, 219 Waterman Street, Paul Gressinger, 146, 148 Wayland Avenue, Steve Lewenstein, 215 Waterman Avenue, 211 Waterman Street, 217 Waterman Street, and Paul Gressinger, again, 161 Wayland Avenue, and Steve Lewenstein, 228 Waterman Street, and 218 Waterman Street. But also Chip Smith, who I think is here tonight. Many of these people are here tonight. 109, let me line this up properly here, 224 Waterman Street for Mr. Smith. Neil Bromley, 109 Medway Street, 96 East Manning Street, and 101 Medway Street. Ed Kazarian, 105 Medway Street. Greg Weiss and Mark Weiss, 220 Waterman Street and 222 Waterman Street. Russell Baskin and Peter Berman, 116 East Manning Street. So you got 19 properties, 11 different owners, 63%. And some of the people couldn't be here because they had things like PTA meetings or doctor's appointments or a charity event, so not all of them could be here, but most of them are here.
And to clarify, you're saying those are all of your clients?
Yes.
Those are all of your.
Those are the clients who live within the 200 feet. There are others, as I mentioned, Croft School, and there are others who live beyond the 200 feet. But these are all the ones within the 200 feet, yes. So it's not just one person. It's a lot of the people who live around there and have investments and have residential properties and care and think this is going to be the neighborhood. And in addition to that, yes, you've also gotten other letters. You've got 83 letters from Ward 1 residents, and 40 or so letters from people who are outside the ward. But you got letters in support of it, and you know that's not how you should be judging this anyway, as to who has the most support. This isn't a popularity contest. You should be looking about what's going on, what's the best thing for the neighborhood in the long run, and the health of this neighborhood, which I think is not good there. And then I want to know, if you were thinking about, you might make an exception. I don't really want to get into a lot of it about, you heard a lot about the type 1 and the type 2 hood. I am going to ask if you could take into, as an exhibit, this is an updated letter from Peter Casale. There's 10 copies there, so I think it's good enough to spread around the table. Who is a code consultant, is chief of structures of zoning and building in Providence. And there's two things here. So first,
Andy, can we just make a motion to enter this as a
sure,
here?
yes, please do.
Motion made by Councilor Peterson, seconded by Councilor Royce. All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it.
So that is
Well,
exhibit
actually-
6?
Exhibit 6, yes, sir, excuse me.
Thank you. So on exhibit 6, I mean, one thing that's already been brought up is, by one of the councilors tonight, is the layout of this place. It's got a capacity of 49 people, 38 seats are shown on the plan. 16 of them are at the bar, which is 42% of the seating. So close to half of the seating is at the bar. And you've seen the pictures as well. Half of the space is the bar. So I leave that to you to look at and make out your own decision. You've also heard about the steam hood. It's this type 2 hood, it's steam, and it made it seem like, well, unless we're gonna deep fry fish here with a fryolator, we don't need the other thing, we can pretty much do whatever we want. And I'm not a cook, so I don't know, but I kind of wonder about those soups and those stews. Usually a lot of ingredients with soups and stews, you kind of brown them or cook them first, and then you put them in your casserole and bake them in the oven, or you put them in the soup and they simmer and whatnot. You know, there's nothing that can be done with that there. None of that stuff cannot be done. This isn't a fine dining restaurant. And that's fine, it doesn't have to be. As a restaurant, I think it'd be great. But I don't think that this makes it worth making an exception to 83 years of how this law has been, and 63% of the owners of property in the neighborhood to make an exception to something which I really don't think is a restaurant. Or if it is barely a restaurant. There are 2 other restaurants in Wayland Square that don't have liquor licenses, and they seem to work out fine as well. And in fact, I'd also like to introduce, if I could, as an exhibit, this is a set of text correspondence between George Patsidis and Linda Andrioni, who is here tonight. And I'll wait while that's passed around and entered as an exhibit. And clerk. And I'll just read the second text here from Friday.
Hang on, I just want to make sure. The solicitor, is this legally permissible? I mean, these are text messages between, I don't know if we can enter these into the record,
I mean, you heard a lot of hearsay from Mr. Padua about it, what everybody was saying.
Well,
One of the parties of this is here tonight.
Yeah, well, Mr. Tice, respectfully, I want to defer to the solicitor on this. These are different kinds of exhibits. These are personal text messages between individuals, so I think we need maybe a legal opinion about this kind of exhibit.
Is it possible we could go off the record and discuss this?
Sure. Should we stand at ease for a second, for a moment? Yeah, these are text messages, so I just want to make sure. I mean, it's one thing if we have letters into the record, text messages are a little bit better. So we're going to stand at ease. Yeah.
It's just that there's a gentleman trying to use. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Are you still at ease?
She's making a call.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I see the text message? Go ahead, sir. Contact about what we discussed.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
She's,
I understand. I mean, I have another suggestion. I don't want to make it while she's not in the room, but I have a suggestion to just avoid the text question if you want to.
yeah, I think she's making a call, so apologies for the delay here. I think we, so I think we're gonna defer to the solicitor on this. And you can share more and then we'll go from there.
So it's the water department's position that it's up to the committee with regard to whether or not you want to accept this as an exhibit.
So I'm gonna defer to my committee members on this. I mean, this is not the norm. We don't usually receive text messages. So, I mean, we have letters here. We can either we make a motion to accept this into the record, or if we decide not to as a committee. Motion made by anyone? And there's no motion
Okay,
at the moment,
That's
so.
fine. What I'd like to do, if you don't mind, since you did give Mr. Padua the opportunity to have a witness, and I'd like to just call Linda Andrioni. Since Mr. Padua had Mr. Patsides testify about what people told him, would like to call her and let her tell you, and you can judge her credibility in person, if I may do that. Yep, I'm gonna ask you one question. You need to be sworn in first, though.
Please raise your hand for the record. You swear under perjury that the testimony you're going to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You state your name. And your address, Ms. Andrew.
Yes, that's in River Street, this is what I.
Thank you for being here and being not.
And just, I guess, two questions. First of all, do you own property in the area? Could you just mention that, what property you own in the area?
My property abuts the driveway, abuts George's property, I'm 221,
Next door neighbor.
next to me.
Okay. And in the communication that you had with George, what did he tell you about if he couldn't get his liquor license? What were you doing with the restaurant?
He said he would go on with the restaurant with the license, but he didn't feel that it would be as good. I'm paraphrasing because I haven't heard that before. But that the restaurant wouldn't be as good.
But he did indicate that he could do it by opening for breakfast and lunch and dinner.
Yes.
He didn't think it'd be as good a concept for the neighborhood. I have no further questions. Great, her.
Thank you so much.
Unless the committee does.
Thank you for
Thank you.
having the courage to do that. We really appreciate it.
The chair is moving, that's the problem. Thank you. And I'm basically almost at the end here. I just, I think the point is, this could be run as a restaurant. You heard he didn't want to open for lunch or breakfast. There's no reason why it couldn't. It actually could be a really nice neighborhood place, open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, without a liquor license. And he could make it work like that. You've already heard, he's already got all the permits, he's already got his plans to deal with trash and traffic and everything like that. So it could work like that, and it could be much better for the neighborhood, not for him, but for the neighborhood. And so finally, the other thing that I have to say is, in conclusion, that this is a scheme that has been in the legislature since 1937 in the General Assembly rules. As I said, I am not aware in the last 35 years of it ever being overturned as far as remonstrance. It's always only been schools and churches. So I would urge you not to, because if you do, you're going to set a precedent. You're going to set a precedent of having it changed anytime someone, no matter what the neighborhood says. You're going to set a precedent, even if that doesn't happen, you're going to set a precedent of neighborhood fights and neighborhood, disagreements, as everybody is split on the neighborhood as to how to do it. And it's also going to spread. And it's Waterman Street today, and we had concerns, I'm not going to bother introducing it, I have a letter from Sarah Hebner on Medway Street, and that's her concern. It's like, well, it's Waterman Street tomorrow, it's going to be Medway Street the day after, and then the day after that, it could be on the border of your ward. Councilman Gonzalez, it's already in your ward, but for the other council members, it could be on the border of your ward, right across the street and whatnot. And you're going to set a dangerous precedent if you change that aspect of it. So I would urge you, for all of those reasons, not to adopt this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Tights. Questions from council and committee members? Council members, yeah.
Thank you. Attorney Tice, could you just clarify for me the percentage? You said there's 63% of the abutters within the 200 feet have objected to this. What percentage is Mr. Lowenstein of that 63%?
I think he's about 37% or so.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Like under 50.
Mr. Lowenstein's 37% of the 50% required in order to obtain.
Yes,
legal
yes,
remonstrance.
of the property, measuring it the way the state law requires, where you calculate the square footage within the 200 feet. I believe that's what we had calculated.
One more question. I'm just having a trouble, and I've expressed this before. So the way the Whalen Square is designed, so some of this Waterman is the big, there's two streets in and out, Angel, Waterman, which are heavily traveled. There's, already Red Stripe and other restaurants that are going up Angel, and I really have failed to see how this is different on Waterman than it is on Angel. So you already have restaurants that are going up the road, the major road. So I just am having trouble understanding how this is different.
The major road, but they don't go into the neighborhoods where they go are the existing, where the C2 zoning is, and the commercial stuff's there. This is going up, admittedly, it's zone C2, but the other half of the street is zoned RP, residential professional, and that's what most of the neighborhood around, once you get out of the outer core of Whalen Square, the Whalen Street part of it, and so forth, and the South Angel, that's what you get. You get either just straight residential zone, or you get the residential professional zone, going up Elmwood, going north on Elmwood, going farther east on South Angel, going west. Medway doesn't have really anything on it in the way of commercial.
And Angel is on that, across from Red Stripe and that. Can you tell me what the zoning is in that area?
That's C2. That's C2 there,
It is
up to
RP?
Elmwood, and it's already there, yeah.
And what is on the other side of, across from Red Stripe on the Starbucks side?
Well, Starbucks, I believe, is commercial, but when you go west of Elm Grove, you are, I think, residential professional. And when you
Okay,
go
RP.
north on Elm Grove, you're
RP.
residential
Okay.
professional.
Thank you.
I'm curious about the legal remonstrance here. So when you received the legal remonstrance, who were your clients specifically when you were trying to achieve that legal remonstrance? Because 37%.
They were all
one of your clients.
Right. They were all of them except for Mr. Weiss and Weiss, father and son, and Mr. Kazarian. All of the rest of them were clients at the remonstrance, which was the 56% at that point. And Mr. Weiss said he would rather not get involved if he didn't have to at the time, as did Mr. Kazarian, and now they are involved as well.
But during the time of the hearing,
Yes, at the hearing, there was still,
who were the specific clients that you were representing at that point for that particular hearing?
all of those 19 properties, all those 11 different people, except for Greg and Mark Weiss and Ed Kazarian. If you want me, I'll read all the names again.
No, that's fine. I just for our own edification here.
Yeah.
And for folks who,
And I just want to clarify, most of the properties are owned under various corporate elements rather than individuals, LLCs or LPs or whatnot. I've given you the individual names. I've also got the corporate names if you want them.
got it.
The individual owners behind the corporations are here. These are, small held local corporations, one person or two people, family stuff. This isn't Walmart, it's corporations.
Yeah. And so our concern is clearly quality of life. It's something that we care about deeply in Wayland Square and in the Wayland neighborhood. We don't want anything that's going to undermine quality of life. For those who are supportive of this restaurant, to sort of play devil's advocate, you shared that this would create a precedent. There are clearly other establishments that are within this commercial corridor in Wayland Square. What do you say to those people who say this isn't going to set a precedent because there are already bars and restaurants in this general vicinity?
Well, what I say is, and that's what I try to think when I look at it as a planner, Wayland Square is a larger area with two parts to it, a core and an outlying area. And yes, there are already the restaurants and the liquor licenses in the core, but so far it has not spread out beyond that. It ends at basically Elm Grove Avenue, and it ends on this corner of Wayland here, and it ends one building east of Wayland on the other side where Mary is. But the liquor licenses haven't spread beyond that core, and I would argue that it would be detrimental to the neighborhood as a whole, which includes all those outer residential and professional areas, that it would harm them. I've told you the reasons, and obviously this is a judgment call that you have to make. This is a property kind of right close to the edge. Those are the hard ones. You know, if it were blocked down, it'd be easy. If it were a couple of doors the other way, actually in the square, in the heart of the square and the court, it would be easy. But it's not. It's on the edge, and I think you should give some deference to the people who have very large investments in their property in that area, which they see jeopardized by it. To the extent that, you know, a restaurant would be good and better, if that were the case, then people who have apartment buildings would be saying, yeah, but we want more restaurants here, we want it. And we don't have a problem with the restaurant. We would like the restaurant. As I said, I think, you know, breakfast, lunch, dinner, this would be a nice, the restaurant's not the problem. It's that liquor license which changes the character, and then it's the worry of the liquor licenses spreading out.
And to follow up on that question, so what do you believe is inherently different about this proposed establishment from your perspective and its liquor license and that of McBride's or Mary's Rooftop or Diego's, some of these?
Because it's on the street where all these other residences are, and those people didn't, I think they're both.
Diego's would be, or Mayor's Rooftop Bar is right across the street, isn't it? From this
It has its
proposed
own parking.
establishment?
Murray has its own parking
Okay,
lot.
got it.
It is on the other side of the intersection. This is not on the intersection, this is one in. But yes, I agree, it is one other side of the intersection. But on the other side of them is the large, they have parking lot, and then you've got the large building with Aaron Garabedian and West Properties. You got that big commercial building there. You don't have residences immediately to the east of Monterey. You don't have them so close in proximity.
And then just a follow-up, so neighborhood residents who garnered support for this establishment, they believe, or some of them, the people who had garnered support, they believe that the opposition to the liquor license was primarily stemming from, in their words, local property owner who owns some of the abutting properties trying to suppress competition in the square. Those are their words. Trying to suppress competition in the square. What's your response to this, and do you think that assessment is accurate or inaccurate?
Yes, I think that assessment is inaccurate. And I think it may have been fed a little bit by social media, but I think it's inaccurate, and I think that's what I've tried to show you here tonight, that 10 out of 11 people here who are of different property owners are not that one person. And they don't have restaurant tenants with liquor. They don't have restaurant tenants, they don't have restaurant tenants with liquor licenses. They're here and they oppose it too. So, I mean,
with regards to McBride's and Mary's and Diego's, who is the specific property owner for those establishments? For McBride's?
McBride's, it's still the Monahan family. They've sold the old funeral home place and they're keeping the restaurant.
Okay, so they are the owners of that establishment?
That's correct.
Okay.
And they're not my clients.
What about Mayor's Rooftop?
I'm drawing a blank on his name, Corsetti.
And then what about Diego's?
I don't know who Diego's owner is.
The owner of the, not the owner of the business, I'm talking about the owner of the property.
That might be one of Mr. Lewinstein's. Is Diego's a tenant? Yes. That's one of his
Okay,
tenants.
can you elaborate on the other, are there any other bars or restaurants that are owned by, that are owned by, the gentleman who has 37% of
Pasta Beach and
So-
Red Stripe. I mean,
So Pasta Beach, Pasta Beach, Red Stripe, and Salted Slate.
yes.
Okay.
And that's not something we've hidden, but that's not the only opposition here. I think I've told you, I think you've heard, the reasons behind it, and you can believe it or not, but you should also believe that if there are all these other people here, that don't have restaurants, if it really was just competition, do you think all these other people would be here?
Oh, yeah, no, these aren't my words.
I
So
understand. I'm just
I-
saying, but
I asked-
people who own apartment houses,
Sure.
if they believe that putting a liquor license in here was going to improve the neighborhood, and therefore that would make it more of an attractive draw for their tenants, they'd be in support of it as well. Now, whether they're wrong or not, I can't tell you that, but we believe it, this is our argument, I've given you I've sworn here, I'm also a planner, I've given you my best opinion of it, and it's up to you people to decide.
And really, really appreciate that testimony. I think it's really, really helpful to get all of that information. And, we're not the jury on this. We just want to make sure we have the facts. And I think you sharing those facts were critically important. And that's going to help inform our decision. Councilor Peterson?
Just a quick question in reference to the other, LLCs that you said that you had. What are the businesses of? Are they just apartment complexes, or are they small businesses, or what?
It's a mixture, there's a lot of retail along there, and, most of them are apartments, yes, most of them are rental properties, most of the other people around here are owning rental properties, the people behind me.
Okay, so I think everything's all set here. So like I said, we're going to allow the proponents to respond to that. I think we're going to set a time limit because otherwise we'll be here all night.
Yes.
And I don't think anybody wants to be here all night. So we're going to, how about we say roughly about 5 minutes, or even less? What do you think?
I only have only one thing just to bring your all's attention, so I'll be very brief.
Okay, so let's do 3 minutes. That'll make it shorter. So
Okay.
we'll have them have an opportunity to respond, and then Mr. Tice, you'll have the opportunity to respond.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tice.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna try to stick to the time here, Jeff,
You
just
got it.
for efficiency purposes, because this isn't the only item that's on our agenda tonight. We have,
I appreciate it. So when you all were asking questions,
So,
Councilwoman
do
Anthony,
you mind just, because you're,
when you were asking questions about the C2 zone, I just looked it up on my phone, so I just want you to have that. There was characterizations about what was the core, what was the outside, and so, I can just show you, the ward. Just show you where the C2 zone is, you can make your own assumptions about whether it's in the core or not in the core.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, from,
Just where's Angel?
so Angel is up here, excuse me, where it says C1, that's Angel, and Waterman is right here. So that's the RP zone is green, the C2 zone, and Mr. Alcides is, exactly.
And you
And
just,
across the street is the RP.
I mean, I
Red
think
stripe.
it's helpful, because if you want to let him show others, yeah.
Sure. So, Mr. Alcides, property is, second one in here, Red stripe is over here, and so this is pink, is C2 zone, and green is the so-called R2 zone. Sure. So this one right here. So we'll back to the C. Yeah. So take this C2 zone, properties one right next to the C here, and then the other restaurant, red stripe is right here.
I don't need to see it,
All right.
I know the zoning of my ward pretty well, so.
So that was it, just wanted to bring that to your attention so you had that information. I have nothing further, thank you.
Okay, and then Mr. Tights?
Yes, sure, I will be very quick too. And I guess I'll just say that it's not about the restaurant. The restaurant's allowed, it's all permitted, that's fine. It's about the liquor license. And that's why your liquor licenses don't go to the zoning board. You have a license board, you have a state statute. I talk about the 21st Amendment is very unique to the United States Constitution. Almost everything else is limiting powers to the states, or limiting powers of the federal government. 21st Amendment is what eliminated prohibition and explicitly said, we give this to the states. You take it. Regulating alcohol is the job of the states. And the states crafted their various schemes, and as you can tell from when this was there, this was an early part of the General Assembly, and this was part of that, and they had these restrictions in there. And I think that's why there is, as I've tried to explain, and either you get it or you don't, there's a difference between a restaurant and a restaurant with a liquor license. The liquor license changes the characterizations. That's why you have the license board. That's why you have the ability of remonstrance to object. And I would urge you not to overrule that 83-year-old precedent with your recommendation to the General Assembly.
Thank you, Mr. Tights. Okay, so, committee members? Yeah, absolutely. Is there an opportunity to discuss how we're moving forward with this?
For clarification,
It would go before the entire body of the city council and
In the form of a resolution.
in the form of a resolution. If that was passed the city council, that would be sent to the general assembly, and then if it is tonight, then that, yeah.
So this matter is going to the full.
This would go,
This committee goes to the full council.
this would go to the full council for a vote.
And then Jefferson will take it and consider.
Thank you, Mr. Tice.
Thank you, I'm sorry, I do have to run to another hearing.
Thank you.
So, discussion. Councilor Peterson? Yeah, or Councilor.
By all means, please.
Well, I really appreciate the fact that, I thought it was important, and discuss this with the chairman, that, we hear from both parties, because there has been a lot of information shared with all of us and all the council members on this particular issue. Typically, resolutions like these really are kind of the discretionary resolutions that come before the city council, but they are also, typically, it's the council person who's in charge of the ward in which the establishment is located, has a lot of influence on the decision, and all council consensus is supportive of the resolution. I, came in late on this and had a lot of people express an interest in this project. So I was particularly interested in having this hearing and listening to everyone, but I will tell you that I also have, listened very carefully, and I appreciate all the testimony from everyone today, and I think it was really thorough. My issue right now is, I understand we're talking about a liquor license, but I do not, given the location of where this is, it's one you can see from the map that was presented tonight, it's one block in. I really do think of this as part of the core of Shannon Square. And I think that, to treat this any differently than the other establishments with liquor licenses would be unstable. So I mean, I've gone over, looked at it, I understand the, layout now, the garbage, the parking, the everything, and I just don't see how this changes the character of the neighborhood, is all I have to say. So,
And to couple that, just my take on this, I did a lot of work on this, looked at the facts, merits on both cases, on both sides, I should say, and, the neighborhood was clearly supportive. They had asked me to, consider a position in support, and, our constituents, I would say they make very informed decisions, and I know there are people on both sides, but to see the neighborhood associations come out in support, I think that is very instructive. And then I would also say, I don't necessarily agree that we're setting a precedent here, in my opinion, just based on some of these other establishments that currently exist here. So if we're thinking about this on the merits, I think this is no different than any other establishment. I would say, however, quality of life is an important concern that I know Councilwoman and I share, and I would not feel comfortable passing this out of committee unless we had a specific, I think we were affirmed by the owner that they would cap the hours of the establishment. I think to keep the hours of the establishment consistent with the other bars and restaurants in the neighborhood would ensure that quality of life is upheld and we're not undermining quality of life or creating some kind of scenario where people are up from 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I think if we would feel comfortable passing it contingent on that agreement, that it's not going to be open until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I would feel very comfortable passing this out of this committee. I just want to throw that out there.
I have a lot of thoughts, I just don't recognize how to get more of them into.
Is that lost for words? Just conflicted, chair on, in the sense that I feel like, my goal as a council is not dictate what happens in another fellow council's ward in neighborhood. But I also take very seriously the concerns of the folks who are opposing this. Like, I just want to mention that, just, typically, resolutions do not have the significance associated, they're important, but
The impact of what?
the impact, yeah.
We need to make a motion tonight, so we do have to make a decision on this.
I certainly understand, both perspectives, a firm believer that to the extent of, how businesses are handle themselves is certainly, we should be giving a little bit of leeway as business owners that are trying to be a part of this community, any given community in the city. But I agree with the Vice Chairman that there are very significant points that have been made by the abutters, and that is absolutely something that we need to consider. The other piece to this, for me, is that, and this is very key in how I'm kind of thinking about this, is in the presentation to the Board of Licenses, there was a large majority of what we described, I think it was 37% of, in an effort to find that legal remonstrance, 37% of the businesses and only, or work from one specific property owner. And that is actually something that I wish we would have another opportunity to represent in front of the Board of Licenses to say, hey, we actually want real community engagement from the actual tenants, more so than, you know.
And to be clear, if we pass this tonight, right, this goes to the General Assembly, so this, if we pass it as a full body, so this is enabling, the next step to this would be, if we passed it tonight, would be for it to go before the entire council. We would make a decision there before the entire council, and then the General Assembly would then make their decision. So there's still several steps in the process, and we would just enable this to move forward. And again, there would be a lot more due diligence in the future about this.
I can feel comfortable enough saying that I could push it to move forward with much more conversation within council to really advocate for the people that are opposed and making sure that we're really listening to how it will affect the community at large. And I think full council input. I would prefer full council input with that.
And which is why I was also suggesting that we could put a cap on contingent on their agreement to keep the establishment hours consistent with other establishments. That would allow us to at least get that confirmation and affirmation that we need to know that quality of life isn't going to be undermined in the neighborhood. Were there community meetings around this? Guess I would, I'm not sure, I'm fairly sure. But I mean, clearly, the community has weighed in, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've got the two neighborhood association heads that have weighed in to say that they're supported. I mean, there are clearly people on both sides, as you heard, but this would obviously, I mean, to allay those concerns, I would feel comfortable moving forward if we got an affirmation from, again, the owner to say our hours are going to be consistent with some of these other restaurants and bars in the neighborhood. Because again, this is no different than some of those other restaurants and bars that are already operating in the square. So we can certainly call them up and.
I mean, what, I appreciate an affirmation. What happens if the hours are not? What happens if the hours do become?
Well, they're on the record.
You know?
They're on the record.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Yes.
Just gonna say, you know, there are three choices for the committee to make. You know, refer back with a recommendation for approval, refer back for a recommendation for denial, or just refer back with no recommendation. If you're stuck, I mean, I'm just saying, never forget the option.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm just.
So. We need to hear from the.
No, I think everybody's, their senses.
I will motion to move forward with the understanding that we need to bring the entire council in as the next step and engage everyone. A motion.
Motion to recommend approval.
Motion to recommend approval. Okay. Motion seconded by? There's only one other committee member, so.
No. No, I would approve of the recommendation.
Okay, so approved with no recommendations. Yeah.
Go ahead, so that fails, that
That
motion
fails.
fails.
That
Yeah,
motion
Yes,
fails.
So,
that motion
yeah, that's,
fails.
those are two different.
Two different
motions.
motions.
Okay, so no.
So, what are your recommendations here? So we have the
Your motion to approve, the
motion
matter
to-
goes before the full council.
Right, we got a motion to deny, and then the matter will go to the full council for approval of the denial. Then you have your motion to continue, and it's gonna stay on the pending list.
Mhm.
And you have your motion to continue indefinitely.
Yeah.
And then it's just gonna die.
So with regards to, so I can just share a little bit more about this. So the motion to continue would keep this on the pending list, meaning that this wouldn't go up to the General Assembly in time for, for them to do what they need to do.
I
So
understand.
that would essentially,
Okay.
It's gonna linger again.
It's gonna
It's
linger
gonna-
again, right, and I certainly don't want that for any of the businesses nor the, okay. I do go ahead and.
I'm sorry, the other options, I'm sorry, it just,
so
just
you
want
have,
to be clear.
you have a motion to approve,
Yeah,
a motion to deny, motion to continue.
The continue means it's gonna stay back on the pending list.
Oh, actually, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
so just a motion to approve and a motion to deny.
And there is a motion to forward to the council without a recommendation, so I think that's what you guys are saying here too.
I,
To continue or continue indefinitely would mean that it's just, yeah, because it wouldn't go to the General Assembly.
Now, I think because I'm so conflicted here, and I want this to move to the next step in the process, I think approving a motion to move forward without a recommendation, I think, is where I'm gonna stand on this.
Okay,
I agree.
so motion made by Councilor Royce, motion seconded by Councilor Peterson,
I'm sorry, which motion was this one?
motion to forward to the council without a recommendation.
The last one.
All in favor? All opposed? Okay, you guys have it. So this is going to go to the full council for a vote. Got
Some of them are things that I.
So we're past that.
Thank you for your time and attention, appreciate that.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Hi, Diana.
All right, Madam Clerk, can you read number 2 into the record? No, that's. We're gonna, let's read this.
Resolution endorsing. Number 2, resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5141, an act relating to education and federal aid.
Okay, so we're all. Thank you, thanks for coming, thanks for being here. All right, so what I'll do is,
Give a summary to Chairman.
I'm gonna give a summary of all of these items, and then we'll just kind of go from there. So this summary, this authorizes the Providence Board of Licenses. Oh, no, that's the first one here.
Yep.
Number 2 is requires free lunches to be provided for all elementary and secondary students attending public schools to the extent that state and federal funds are available. The counselor that, or the sponsor is Justine Caldwell in the General Assembly. So, discussion? Okay. Okay, motion made to move this, to the full council. Seconded by Councilor Peterson. All in favor? All opposed? You guys have it. Madam Clerk, item number 3.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5142, an act relating to health and safety, high heat waste facility act of 2023.
So this provides for a prohibition on any new high heat waste facilities. So that's pretty much just the summary of this particular piece of work. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. High heat waste facilities.
Who's the sponsor?
This is Michelle McGough, who's the house sponsor. And the council sponsor is Councilman Espinal. I'm assuming it's to prevent any high heat waste facilities for specifically in Ward 10.
If I can add some context.
Yeah, sure.
Because I looked into all this. This is referring to what you may have heard was that advanced recycling, where they kind of like incinerate it and what have you, and it's like, you probably read that, the papers. So that's what that high heat is referring to.
I make a motion.
Motion for approval from Councilor Peterson, seconded by Councilor Royce. All in favor? All opposed? You guys have it. Next item.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of Senate Bill 2023 S-0002, an act relating to health and safety, lead poisoning prevention act.
Okay, so the summary, this establishes a lead water supply replacement program for public and private service lines and requires disclosure to tenants and buyers of real property of the presence of lead service lines. Discussion? All in favor? Or motion to approve amendment? Councilor Peterson, seconded by Councilor Royce. All in favor? All opposed? You guys have it.
Sorry.
The next item.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5300, an act relating to criminal offenses, assault weapons.
So this particular resolution supports the ban, it supports banning the possession, sale, and transfer of assault weapons. Possession of assault weapons owned on the effective date of this act would be grandfathered in, and violations are punishable by a fine or imprisonment. Bans the possession, sale, and transfer of assault weapons. Discussion? Now sponsor is Jason Knight, who's an advocate for banning assault weapons in the state. I'm not sure. I don't know all the sponsors.
Don't even worry about it, I know
I think that clause is in there because of the Second Amendment. You can't just take people's guns away.
Right.
If they already have them. This would just prevent them from purchasing guns and assault weapons in the future. So that's why that clause is in there for that. Yeah. Motion? Motion to approve. Seconded by Counselor Peterson.
Yeah.
All in favor? All opposed?
You want some water? You can have my water, but I'm not thinking.
The ayes have it. The next item, number 6.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5318, an act relating to health and safety, lead poisoning prevention act. Wait, I just said that. Sorry.
No.
Nope, this was, this is
That's a
the,
different one.
this is the House bill, prior was the Senate bill.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
It's okay.
I'm confused.
They're like the same language.
So this establishes a lead service line replacement program using federal funds.
Right.
All right. All right, motion made by Counselor Peterson, motion's seconded by Counselor Woods. All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 7.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5350, an act relating to insurance, accident, and sickness insurance policies.
So this item limits the co-payment or co-insurance requirement on specialty drugs to $150 for 30 days supply. And the House sponsor to this particular legislation is Brett Morales. So, motion to approve by Counselor Peterson, seconded by Counselor Royce. All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 8.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5461, an act relating to elections, registration of voters.
So this item limits the this item,
Oh, I put that twice, apologies for that.
yeah, I think,
Yeah, I doubled. Here,
so
I mean,
the
I can get it.
sponsor on this is Brett Morales. And
Yes. Here, I got the summary right there.
remember, he's not serving you well on this, but
Do you want me to read the summary?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
I double printed it for you. This authorizes cities and towns by ordinance to allow all their residents to vote in municipal elections for municipal office holders regardless of the immigration status of their residents.
No brainer, motion to approve.
okay, motion to approve, Counselor Royce. Give me a second.
Second, it's fine.
Motion, okay.
No, it's fine.
You do,
I will
okay,
second it.
okay, seconded by Counselor Peterson. All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. All right, the next item is, item number 9.
Resolution supporting the Medicare for All Act of 2022.
So this is a state resolution that was introduced last year by Rep. Michelle McGaugh. It's just a resolution supporting national legislation for Medicare for all. So, motion made by Councilor Peterson, seconded by Councilor Royce.
A strong second.
Strong second, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 10.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5055, an act relating to elections general provisions.
So this item allows individuals who have not reached the age of 18 to vote in a primary election as long as the voter will be 18 as of the date of the general or special election. Motion made by Councilor Peterson, seconded by Councilor Royce. Discussion. All in favor? The ayes have it. All right, item number 11.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5120, an act relating to property, homeless bill of rights.
So this resolution creates a commission to establish homeless shelter standards through regulations. And it's a bill that's sponsored by Rep. and Judge Lombardi.
Strong motion to approve.
Strong motion to approve by Counselor
Second.
Lewis, seconded by Counselor Peterson. Discussion, all in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. All right, number 12.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5204, an act relating to state affairs and government, the Department of Housing.
Okay, so this requires the Secretary of Housing to create a consumer guide of landlord-tenant laws to be updated annually. This is something that you introduced, Councilor Peterson, so motion made by Councilor Peterson, seconded by Councilor Royce. Discussion, all in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 13.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5376, an act relating to property, Rhode Island Fair Housing Practices Act.
So this item prohibits landlords from inquiring about an applicant's prior incarceration, and it prohibits landlords from discriminating against those who have been released from prison. Discussion?
I just want to hear, so,
Motion to
I'm
approve.
happy with the motion.
Motion to approve by Councilor Peterson, seconded by Councilor Royce. All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. All right, item number 14.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5841, an act relating to commercial law, general regulatory provisions, purchase and sale of precious metals.
So this item mandates a bill of sale for transacted catalytic converters, and changes requirements to 3 years for report. And would make it a conviction for the non-legal sale of catalytic converters. Motion made by Councilor Peterson,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Royce. Discussion, all in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 15.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5842, an act relating to commercial law, general regulatory provisions, Rhode Island catalytic converter into state compact.
Okay, so this item establishes an interstate compact regulating purchase, dealing, and catalytic converters, and sets licensing and reporting requirements for each sale. Oh, that's not right. Oh, actually, is it?
It's two different, so one of them is just an interstate compact.
Oh, okay, got it.
States to,
Let's see, for each sale or purchase.
keep record, yeah.
Got it. Okay, you were the sponsor on this, so
My
assuming
motion.
motion to, for approval, seconded by Councilor Royce. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 16.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5362, an act relating to property, residential landlord and tenant act.
This item increases the amount of time of notice a residential landlord must give to a tenant prior to any rent increase.
My motion.
Motion made by Councilor Peterson, seconded by Councilor Royce. Discussion, all in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 17.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5580, an act relating to property, residential landlord and tenant act.
So this item prohibits a landlord and others from requiring an application fee from a prospective tenant or tenants. Discussion?
Motion to move.
Motion move for approval. Counselor Royce, seconded by Counselor Peterson. Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? You guys have it? All right, number 18.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5502, an act relating to health and safety beverage container deposit recycling act of 2023.
So this item establishes a system for the recycling of beverage containers, working with the Department of Environmental Management. Motions made for approval by Councilor Peterson, seconded by Councilor Royce. Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 19.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-5691, an act relating to property, residential, landlord, and tenant act.
Yeah, just,
No, it's a
19.
different one.
oh, it's a different.
This is the prohibits it from a rent increase more than once annually, as opposed to.
Okay, yeah, so this
Yeah.
prohibits a landlord from increasing the rent more than once annually. Motion made by Councilor Peterson to approve, seconded by Councilor Royce. Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 20.
Resolution endorsing and urging passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 2023 H-6087 and Senate Bill 2023 S-0311, an act relating to property, residential, landlord, and tenant act.
So this prohibits the requirement that a fee be paid for a rental application for real property.
Yeah, so there's two. And just for context, I mean, they're all slightly different, but this one moved. They just voted this on the floor.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
So it might be good for us to just pass as a way of support, even though
yeah, and
it's further
for
along.
context within the
What
House,
was the difference?
Yeah.
very slight. There was violations punishable through a fine with the one from Brett Morales. And what ended up happening was he was able to introduce that as an amendment to this one that was on. So they liked it. It was like copacetic at the end.
So as it stands, if this gets, so it got passed to the House, to hopefully get passed to the Senate.
Yep.
So if a landlord charges prospective renters a fee for the application, there's a fee, so a fine, fine associated
Right.
with that illegal practice.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and then they also sort of clarified what like a fee means for like a credit check and stuff like that, so.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
$50 if the, absorb that cost relatively.
With a fine of $500.
Oh, 500?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, so you said 50.
No, 500, yeah.
Oh, that's very different, great, that's good.
And again, this is just past the House. I don't know, we know where it is in the Senate.
Hasn't been heard yet, almost nothing's been heard in the Senate yet.
So this resolution is still relevant and get transmitted to the General Assembly before they make a decision on the Senate side. Yep, motion to approve by Councilor Royce, seconded by Councilor Peterson. Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 21, this prohibits employers from seeking / using credit reports and making hiring decisions concerning prospective employees, asking questions about the applicant's financial past during interviews, or including credit history questions in their job applications.
These are the matters that you haven't continued indefinitely. This needs to-
These are from 2022.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
so, we make a motion to read items 21 through 23 and continue indefinitely.
Yes. 21.
It's just 21 here?
No.
21, 22, and 23.
All from,
Why do we continue reading that?
Because these were introduced last year, so they're no longer relevant. So we just continue them.
Right, they were on the pending matter from the previous.
So are they always going to be pending?
Yeah, actually, we should just,
So we just,
yeah, we just make a motion to, well, continue indefinitely, would just mean that it doesn't show up on our future docket.
Correct.
Just continue to do that.
Yeah, okay.
So someone's got to make that motion.
I'll make the motion to continue matters 21 through 23 indefinitely.
So motion seconded by Counselor Boyce. Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. And I think that's every single item on the agenda. Can someone make a motion to adjourn? A motion to adjourn by Counselor Peterson, seconded by Counselor Boyce. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you for 7:30, so golly. Oh, that's still being recorded.